Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Do you understand me?
That's a different story.
Yes. I'm going to welcome you to, believe it or not, the 22nd Annual Candidates Forum. That is as long as the count's been kept properly every year, because I just add 1 year to the previous year, but we believe it's the 22nd since we gained independence from the developer. Before I forget, please silence your cell phones. I'm David Taylor. I'm the chair of the search committee. I thank the other members of the committee, who were Susan French-Allen, Beth Crowley, Denny Dixon, Esther Goldstein, and Paul Rush. Paul Rush is our valuable timekeeper here, so he's a very important person today. I also want to make special thanks to Linda Irwin, who, as usual, provided invaluable work for the committee all through our project here. We have a strong group of candidates today. We have, in order here, Joanne Ellison, Bob Applework, and Don Taylor. The order at the table has been determined by drawing, and they will speak in this order. But when we do the questions, we will start with Joanne. On the first question, she'll answer it first, but then we'll go down. Each person will get an opportunity to answer the question first. So then we just rotate through the candidates. Today we're recruiting for 2 open positions of the 7 total of board members. It's a 3-year term. You will get copies, if you haven't already picked them up, there are copies of their profile and platform at the back. Beth is holding it up for you there. Each candidate will make opening remarks of no more than 5 minutes, which is why I say Paul is an important person. As the time approaches a limit, he will provide an indication that they've got 1 minute or 30 seconds left. We are, excuse me, we are again recording the proceedings this year, and we'll be posting the video. So please encourage your neighbours that aren't here to watch that video and get a good understanding of the candidates. They are, after all, going to have an influence over our community for the next 3 years. We have again, like we did last year, gathered questions in advance. I have honestly tried to capture everybody's that sent them in. I got quite a flurry this morning, so I think I've I think I've captured them all, but we'll see. I will try and keep the meeting on not too much more than like 4 or 5 hours. So but we'll see how that goes. The responses to the questions are 2 minutes each, which for some issues is probably a bit short, but we'll see how that goes. I did get one question, and I think I'd better answer it, because the question was, is David Taylor related to Don Taylor? Well, as soon as you hear Don Taylor speak, you'll know he's not related to me at all. So let's, without further ado, let's begin with opening remarks, and Joanne is going to begin. So, thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, and good afternoon. First, I am really excited to be here. And I want to thank the search committee for all their hard work, and I want to thank my fellow candidates for their willingness to volunteer. This is not my first time coming before you as a candidate and asking for your vote. I served on the Saddlebrook board before for 2 terms, and this summer, the current board asked me to step in and fill a vacancy. I found the experience rewarding, and after some encouragement, I decided that I want to continue to be your informed voice on the board. During my 20-plus years as a practicing attorney, I was responsible for the legal aspects of multi-million-dollar projects and high-stakes litigation. As an attorney, I know what my fiduciary duties are as a member of the board, and on countless occasions, I have provided guidance to management and my colleagues on the board using this expertise. What do I want to achieve this time around? First, affordability. Saddlebrook must continue to remain affordable. At this moment, we are in a period of economic uncertainty. Prices are going up. Materials and workers are hard to find. During this period, we have to be extra careful in our planning and budgeting so as to avoid unnecessary increases in homeowners' dues. Yet, we must continue to maintain our amenities to the high standards that we have all come to expect. This balance is achieved by strong oversight of management and fiscal responsibility. Second, fairness. I want you to know that in my role as a board member, I will respect the rights of all residents and not favor any particular group or interest. I have a deep understanding of the diverse concerns and priorities of our residents. I have never been afraid to step in and get involved on behalf of a resident if that is what I think is needed for that resident to get a fair hearing. Third and last, we must prepare ourselves for the future. Saddlebrook must continue to adapt to important trends in lifestyle and remain an attractive choice for the next generation of homebuyers. Important changes are taking place right now, and I am excited about our future. As just one example, we are currently reviewing our IT system so we can assess how to make important tech upgrades. Some of you will remember that when I ran before, I said that if I was elected, I would do something that very few attorneys would ever do. I would work for you for free. I kept that promise, and if I am reelected, I will continue to keep that promise and be your informed voice on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Our next speaker is Bob Applework.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to see so many of you out here trying to become informed about ongoing elements of the board's activities. It's really encouraging that there are that many of you that are interested and in such a very incredible way. I have been a resident in Saddlebrook now for 2 years full-time. We bought our home 8 years ago, in 2008, excuse me. And can't begin to tell you how fortunate we feel to be here. This is a wonderful place, and it needs to be maintained and kept in the fashion that you found it when you came here. Many of the things that Joanne expressed a concern about and indicated needed attention are things that I'm sure will be brought to my attention going forward if I am elected. I have no preconceived ideas. I know that there are issues out there, such as the pickleball thing and other elements of concern that exist within the community. But I have not come into this position with any preconceived ideas about any aspect of those. So I'm available to be a sounding board for those elements. As far as my background is concerned, I have been in business and owned a business for many years, was very active in business, civic, social, religious activities, and found myself in positions of reasonable responsibility. I would like to think that I could bring those learning skills and those things that I became aware of to this position if it were offered to me. And I think that it would be an extremely honorable thing to have happen for me to finish out my life as a servant for the people. It's been a good life, and I think that according to the pastor that serves resurrection here on Sunday mornings, he preached a sermon in which he said, we all have talents, and we all have things that we can offer to the public. And I had been kind of wavering about running for this position, and after he got up and told us how he came out of retirement to come back to lead Resurrection, I decided, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. I would sincerely appreciate your consideration of me. Any support that you could turn my way, I would deem to be very honored to accept, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Bob. And now, Don Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming to the Candidates Night. My name is Donald Taylor. Everyone calls me Don. I began my professional career in a traditional manner. First, I obtained my master's degree in accounting. The master's program was developed in conjunction with the Big 8 accounting firms. I worked several years doing audit and tax at one of those firms. One of my specialty areas was not-for-profit social organizations. I then moved to private industry as a corporate controller. One of my tasks there was to evaluate, choose, and implement new financial systems for a publicly held company. High inflation and high interest rates led to the demise of that company. I then went to a system software company that had just bought the software I had just implemented. Their goal was to integrate the financial applications into their database software and then market it. I initially worked for the CFO. One of my tasks was to implement the software we had just purchased. The other task was to work with the software development group so they understood the business needs of our customers. Later, I worked with the salespeople to help them explain to the customer how our software can meet their objectives. I eventually got promoted to Information Technology Director. After that company was acquired, I took a position of Director of Administration at a startup biotech company. Responsibilities there included finance, taxes, information technology, human resources, and purchasing. I was hired to get the company into a position to go public. The company did go public, but was ultimately unsuccessful. At dissolution, one of the company's major assets was a patient data system, which I was instrumental in designing. All of these positions I mentioned were administrative in nature. My wife, Ann, and I rented here for 2 years before buying a home. We then spent 12 years spending the spring, summer, and fall here. Winters were spent in Vermont, also known as a reverse snowbird. I put ski instructor in a prominent position in my candidate profile. Some people have questioned its relevance. Ski instructor is a very visible customer service position. While on the mountain, customers often came to me with their questions or problems. One of our job priorities was to help customers as much as possible. The company's three major objectives for instructors were: 1, be safe; 2, have fun; and 3, teach something. A major priority of mine when teaching was to first listen to and learn the customer's objectives and do my best to help them achieve them. Their objectives range from, how do I get up if I fall, to coaching an expert skier in how to prepare for a semi-professional mogul competition. Big range of people there. I've been on the HOA 1 Finance Committee 3 years. Since almost everything involves spending money, I have a good understanding of the committee processes and how things are done here at HOA 1. I see my role on the board in a similar manner to my other jobs in life. Listen to the homeowners' wishes and do my best to achieve results within the given legal, financial, and space parameters. After hearing your questions and answers today, I ask that you consider voting for me. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Don, and thank you much to all three of you. So now we get to the questions. And just as a reminder, Joanne will take the first question first, and then we'll move down the table. I won't introduce each speaker each time. So the first question is, we're looking at the relationship with Saddlebrook 2. How do you assess the relationship, and how will you improve it?
No.
No, it's went off.
Okay. Wait.
There it is.
Is this on? Okay. I think it was on mute. Well, I think there's been a lot of chatter in the community about whether the two HOAs should merge. Well, look, I'm not sure merger makes sense. But I do believe that the two HOAs must build a solid relationship of mutual respect and cooperation. And I am really excited and optimistic about building this relationship. When I was asked to be chair of the Saddlebrook Public Affairs Commission, I did so on the condition that it be open to residents of HOA 2. And we have always had active participation on the commission by residents of HOA 2. You know, folks, it doesn't get a lot of attention, but there has been a lot of cooperation between the two HOAs over the years. I have listed some of them on my website, joanneellison.com. I want to build and expand on those areas that we have already established. We have serious challenges and opportunities that will face us in the future, and those can best be faced if the two HOAs work together. For example, the new Fry's Supercenter is going to bring much more traffic into the area, which will present serious safety and security challenges. We may have more weather events. Saddlebrook 1 and 2 must continue to find ways to work together.
Well, the situation that exists currently with respect to the concern between the two HOAs has always been there. They existed as separate entities when they were established. I don't for a minute believe that there's not some real good reasons why maybe they should consider a merger of some type, but that would be a long-term. Did somebody say something? Somebody would, it would be a long-term study that would have to work on all the unintended consequences that would show themselves up to be problems for the organization of these two HOAs. I don't think it's an easy thing that can be accomplished in a short period of time, and there's quite a few elements that have to be taken into consideration. So I think that it is an issue that will take a lot of study, and I would hope to be part of the organization that would come to develop a conclusion about which direction that should go.
Committee, okay, there we go. On the Finance Committee, I've heard recently about some of the cooperative efforts the two HOAs do. Outside of that meeting recently, I had no knowledge of what we do together, and I hear the rumors about the animosities between the two groups. Again, not having been on the board, I don't know how much this is smoke and how much is truth. So I know the people on the HOA2 board. I personally have no issues with them, and I'd like to see how we can work together. But without knowing more details, I don't have a known problem or solution, but I'm willing to listen and work with them as possible.
Thank you. I should have probably made it a little clearer. This was a general question about the relationship, but the next question is about merger. Do you support the idea of unifying the HOAs? If so, how would you recommend the board proceed to achieve this objective? And if you do not think that's a good idea, why not?
I didn't understand.
And so, Bob, you begin.
I didn't understand that question.
I think you've probably answered that to some extent.
Me?
Yeah, you're first this time.
First.
Well, first of all, I had a little trouble understanding exactly what the question is.
Do you support the idea of unifying the HOAs?
Redefining them?
No, unifying them.
Oh, unifying
merging
them. Well, it's a possibility. I wouldn't discount the value of having that happen. But it's going to take a lot of study, and there's going to have to be a lot of concessions that are made by all parties. This is not something that one side is going to take advantage of the other on. And we must all understand that if we're going to go down this road, we've got to be prepared to make sacrifices.
I guess I'm going to answer this with a question. What business problem are we trying to solve? A merger is a solution, but what is the problem? I don't know the answer to that. We have a reciprocal use agreement, which allows us to share facilities. If we would have a merger on January 1st, the first thing that would happen would be if we all ought to pay the same homeowners fees, their fees in HOA2 for January, beginning January, $309 a year more than ours. So to produce equity, we would have to pay $200 a month, a year more, and they would pay $100 a year less. I don't see any benefits that would immediately accrue. There may be some, but I think I need to hear all these things. Because right now, with an existing RUA, I don't see a lot of benefits. And I see problems of combining organizations. I've dealt with quite a bit with Vivian Timian and Mike Treiber, the controller. I think these people are very qualified. If you combine the two organizations, somebody goes. And all that reorganizing two companies into one is a big project, and you better think carefully what you're doing before you start the process.
I believe I already addressed this for the most part. I'm not sure whether a merger makes sense, at least for the short term, and I think we should be focusing our energies on establishing a solid relationship of mutual cooperation and respect, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. The next question is on pickleball. We're starting with the hard ones first. Pickleball. Do you support an expansion to the pickleball facility? If so, Please state what ideas you have and would recommend to your colleagues on the board to provide pickleball facilities which meet the demand of our community. And if so, what would you do about the noise considerations for a number of our residents? If you do not support a pickleball expansion, how would you justify that decision to the many pickleball players in our community?
I guess I'm first. I watched the HOA2 meeting of about a month and a half ago when the HOA2 board voted to have, if pickleball can raise the money to build the 8 additional courts in Bobcat Canyon, and it gets built with $280,000 of HOA2 money, then HOA2 will take over pickleball and it will become an HOA2 amenity. I expect the process of getting those courts built will be approved through the county and it will be done. At that point, they will have the courts that they want. I'm not sure how much the HOA1 board has to get involved with this. So I used to play pickleball. I was a member of this pickleball association. I like the sport. The problem is no homeowner seems to want it near their house. But it looks like the courts will go through and they'll have a place and it should be a done deal for the foreseeable future. I'm done.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's on.
It's on? Okay. Look, pickleball is a fun and popular sport. It has grown exponentially over the last decade, and it is an important amenity for future homebuyers. But we all know that no one wants it near their homes. That's just a fact. My mother raised me to live by the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Folks, we are neighbors with HOA2, and we always will be. If one side gets a win on an occasion, the other side will find a way to retaliate, and so on and on and on. We need to resolve differences, and I'm talking about Bobcat Canyon. We need to resolve differences in order to move forward. We need to work this out as neighbors. That's my feeling.
Well, not being a pickleball player, I'm aware of the fact that there is contention out there relative to how the facilities can be expanded. And I have to admit that just recently I learned of the fact that the facilities that are domiciled in Saddlebrook 1, according to my information, are actually owned by Saddlebrook 2. So that's a conundrum that I really feel is going to take a lot of work and a lot of negotiation in order to come to some sort of reasonable conclusion with respect to how we address this issue. And it's something that's new to me, but I'm willing to spend the time and offer the information and attitude that I have with respect to resolving issues like this in the past. But it's something that if anyone has a resolution to it, I'm sure everybody'd be delighted as all get out.
Okay, thank you. Can I just remind you when you're not speaking, Don, could you put that off? Yeah, that's it, thanks. Okay, now Saddlebrook image. First question, how would you enhance the appeal of our community to prospective home buyers? I think it begins with Joanne this time, yeah.
Okay, I'm assuming this is on. Okay. There are plans for improvements being discussed right now on the board and the committee levels so as to better position ourselves for the future. Some of the potential projects being considered are improvements and expansion of our F&B facilities, both the front of the house, which is the dining area, and the back of the house, which is the kitchen area. Also being considered are improvements to our Arts and Crafts Center and our Fitness Center. We are short of space in both of those facilities, and they need upgrading. All of these projects are attractive. Our job on the board is to balance those competing projects and identify the ones that make the most sense. Thank you.
I think anything that raises its head as an issue of concern needs to be looked at from the perspective of cost benefit. This community has evolved over the years. I'm confident that the initial residents here were probably younger than most of us are currently. Their needs and their wants were somewhat different. So we need to take and analyze that from the standpoint of what is really required and what the community is seeking, and then make a decision with regard to how we handle those issues. I use a fitness center every day. I can't say that with certainty that I feel that there's any great lack of qualified space available during the course of a day. Now, I go at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not there at 6 o'clock at night when other people are starting to use the facility. But I have not heard any big issues with regard to that. We need to make certain that what we are doing, how we're spending our money, has a cost-benefit factor that is going to bring us real value with regard to how our community continues to grow and be maintained.
Projects that she is talking about, as far as the renovation of this clubhouse, the Agabi back of the house and the front of the house. One issue I've heard a lot about is the entranceway by Oracle Road. Part of that is that entranceway is maintained by HOA 2, and we contribute money towards that. But I think the biggest problem out there is what would be the Fry's property. From my understanding, though, beginning next year, they will do construction with the plan to be finished by November of 2022. When that property is developed, I think that area will look much better than it is now. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Still on image and market status, I think Joanne referred to this earlier. What do you think should be done to improve the security of the community as the neighborhoods and commercial facilities surrounding us expand? I think, Bob, we start with you this time.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, when I look at the routes that are utilized to get into the community, I can't really begin to understand how we can accomplish much as regards the screening of people coming in and out of Saddlebrook, because it starts over on HOA 2 and we have a couple of entrances into HOA 1. I have not heard of any huge issues with people being molested or having their property broken into. Maybe it is a bigger concern than what I'm aware of anyway. And those kinds of things should be brought to the attention of the board. the board should be made aware of any issues that need to be addressed. And if security is something that is of demand or need by the rest of the community, we need to address it. But we also need to, again, look at the cost benefit and how much of that is going to become a burden for some of the community.
Hey, Don, you know, a director has to be able to use the microphone.
Like the way we gate and lock some of our entrances, so there's only one entrance to come in at night. I think it'd be extremely difficult to make this a totally gated community. And I'm not sure if the benefits are there, but then again, I don't know if we have any crime problems, because that's not something that's been brought to my attention. So, as of now, I'm comfortable with our current situation, but I'm open to hear if we have bigger problems than I know about.
When it gets built, it looks like it's on the boards now, and it looks like it's going to be built. The Fry's Supercenter will bring a tremendous amount of traffic into the community, and that will present new security problems and safety problems. And again, if you look on my website, one of the big areas for cooperation so far between the two HOAs has been the patrol. So this would be a perfect project for Saddlebrook 1 and Saddlebrook 2 to see if they can do a mutual gating and security plan to handle the increased traffic coming in from the new Fry's construction, the new Fry's Supercenter.
Thank you. COVID. If COVID continues for the next year, what guidelines should we be following as an HOA? I think this time it's Don, right?
There you go.
Okay. We've gone through this process once before. I think that Vivian, in conjunction with the board, did a good job at mitigating COVID to the extent possible. And at this point, I don't have any additional recommendations. I thought they did a really good job last time, and I think they would do a good job no matter what happens next year.
COVID was a horrible scourge, but it also brought a lot of new, it continues, it isn't over, but it has changed us. It has changed our economy. It has changed supply lines. It has changed the way we work. And those changes have not been processed yet by this country. I mean, we're still in the beginning of the post-COVID or mid-COVID or whatever you want to call it. I have no idea. But I do think one thing for me is that COVID gave me a new appreciation of this community. It was truly a blessing to be here during COVID. Our wonderful management team was able to somehow creatively adapt and supply us food, allow us to play golf, organize, and I shout out to the senior village to get us vaccinated. So it gave me a deepening appreciation, but that's a reason why we really need to take things a little bit slower now, because the impact of COVID, we don't know. We don't know if the economic cycle is going to be 6 months, a year, so we have to go slow, and it's changed us, that's for sure.
The measures that were taken to attempt to stem COVID during the previous year don't seem to have made much difference when they were removed. We have football stadiums being filled, we have people going here and there. Masks are disappearing in a big segment of our society, and I think that we need to understand that in spite of the fact that those things were in place, the same death rate seems to be prevailing at the current time. Now, I'm all for maintaining and seeing to it that people are kept healthy, but to take measures that infringe upon many people's freedoms, at what cost? It's just, our economy is in a shambles at the current time, and there are many other elements that I'm sure that have impinged on most of your lives that we don't need to have continue. So I take a little different situation on that.
Okay, thank you. Here's a question from a very keen billiards player. He wants to know, as an HOA board member, would you continue to support the billiards facility in our community? And I think now we go to Joanne.
Yes.
I don't see any problem with it if it's the methodology that the residents are comfortable with. Go for it.
Yes, I also believe there's table tennis is being talked about and constructed somewhere out here. So that's on the same line. But
Okay. Now we're going to look now at the various options for the future. If you are elected, what would your position be regarding renovating the Roadrunner Grill kitchen and dining room at an estimated cost of $1 million, or adding to the community centre at an estimated cost of $2 million? If you were choosing between those two, which should be the priority? And now we're with Bob.
Well, this is sticky wicket, as the description sometimes goes. I think it would take some in-depth study to find out what benefits, how much more activities the facility will generate. Will it be able to support itself financially? And all of these things are very involved and complex issues that, for me personally, not having served on the board, I would have to spend some time looking at them in depth.
the Roadrunner Grill back of the house project is for safety, and a lot of that is already appropriated in our replacement reserve. I would think that would go on. The issue of additional facilities, I think we've got to balance out what exactly do we want to build. There are a number of possibilities within the buildings here for expansion, but they all come down to the issue of parking spaces. The board went out and got the county to agree to let us count golf cart spaces instead of automobile spaces for some of our capacity requirements. I believe to expand the buildings here, we need to remove the bocce ball courts, build parking spaces, and move bocce ball somewhere else. So we have to decide how are we going to do that and which building? But I do believe that would all be capital improvements, which is not taking money away from downstairs renovation, as far as I know. So we should be able to do both.
We've discussed a number of areas today.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
She gets to talk.
I forgot who we started with.
I don't know if I'm in agreement with the premise of the question, which is an either-or type of question. I think it's going to be what we build, what we do in the future will be a mutual discussion with management, with the residents, looking at the new survey that's going to come out. So we might, you can maybe reduce a portion of a project to add to another project. I mean, that's going to all be on the table next year.
Okay. This will be beginning with Don. We've discussed a number of areas and in general interest, but which projects would you particularly want to support? What would you like to see changed or improved in Saddlebrook? There's been a number of projects that have been proposed, like, as we've already mentioned, the community centre, an expanded fitness centre, additional ones are walking paths along Ridgeview. A number of areas have been talked about over a few years, but what would you like to see personally achieved in your 3-year period?
I don't have one particular one in mind. To me, this survey we're going to take this spring is very important because we need to find out what the community as a whole really wants. I somehow have the feeling you will not get 3/4 of the people all in favor of one thing. Expansion of the Arts and Crafts building was under consideration. I think that still is. I like that idea, but if people in the community prefer some other alternative, I think we need to investigate it. I really have a pretty open mind on this. And I have no one particular thing I think we should do.
I also have an open mind. I don't have any particular project at this time that I would push on my own behalf. I would listen to what's feasible, look at what the community wants, and go from there.
I think that you have to analyze all the projects in depth, make certain that you have identified a need and how that will benefit the community, then you go forward. But it's going to take some time, and I don't have any personal ideas about which should take precedent.
Thank you. One resident asked a question to each of you. So I think we're with Joanne to start with. So Joanne, your question, and actually if any of the other candidates wish to add anything about a topic that is asked of any of the other candidates, they can add to those comments later after the person's answered. So Joanne, the resident would like to know what particular strategic issues are the most concern to you, and how should the board address those issues?
Well, I think that the technology, I would like to see an enhanced user interface with the community. I'm excited about the new, the new IT person that we have retained, I think that he's going to be assessing where we can go with that. I do think Fry's will present some strategic issues in terms of security, as I said. And I guess how the two communities go forward, I think, is a big strategic issue. Are we going to establish a relationship of respect and cooperation and really try to combine our resources and work together even more than we're doing now? So those would be my areas off the top of my head.
Thank you. Do the other candidates wish to talk about strategic issues? No?
Well, personally, I served 14 years on the Transportation Commission in the state of South Dakota, and I was in the trucking business, so I have a reasonable familiarity with the necessity for roads and their maintenance. I think that we need to make certain that we're not over-maintained or under-maintained in our community. We need to get the most value that we possibly can out of the service that we receive from all the maintenance that is required. I've never seen a pothole in Saddlebrook, and I really don't want to see one. But that's something that I have no idea how much study and how much research has been done on that issue, but it's something that would be of interest to me.
Okay, thank you. So then that brings us to the question for Bob. The resident feels that your platform implies some criticism of past HOA1 financial decisions. What do you think was wrong with these processes or decisions? And do you think the board has been judiciously considering the needs of our community in building budgets and executing plans? And what would you think should be done differently?
I'm sorry, Dave. I had a little trouble understanding exactly what the nature of the question is.
Well, this resident feels that you're critical of some of the financial decisions made by HOA1.
That I am?
Yes.
Okay.
That he thought that was conveyed in your platform.
I don't know that I'm being hypercritical. What my situation is, I'm interested in finding out how those decisions and how the application of the funds that the association has available are determined to be spent, and how they establish what the criteria is for where the money is utilized. But there's adequate funding from everything that I've seen, and I look at the financial statements in the communicator every time it's published. So it's not as though I don't feel anyway that we're short in any reasonable way in our financial situation.
Okay, so I guess to clarify, you didn't really mean to convey any criticism of the financial decisions. Yes, that's what you're saying, I think.
That I'm critical?
No, that you weren't critical. That you didn't mean to convey that in your platform.
That I was critical?
Yes.
Well, if that's the inference that they took, I apologize. But
okay, fine.
If they're looking for something negative, I'm sure they can find it.
Okay, that's true. And Don Taylor, this one's a bit of a puzzle too. Where do you think there might be additional land for HOA1 to acquire, and which amenities do you think need to be expanded onto that land?
Okay, several years ago, HOA1 board went out and looked to see what land was available. They came up with a parcel up off of Unit 14 to build additional pickleball courts. It turned out not to be as good as an idea as it originally sounded. And that idea died. The issue of state trust land was a problem back then. Buying that land from the state is extremely difficult. Maybe the situation has changed with the state. Maybe we can look at that again. I don't have any parcels that I have in mind. If there is no possible place, fine. I'm not second guessing the board and what they did in the past. I'm just saying that things change and we should relook at it. I don't hold out great hope for this.
Thank you. Okay, now we start with Bob. Elections are almost upon us again. In this very polarized national political climate, to avoid the potential for contentious situations, would you support a board initiative rule regarding political demonstrations and rallies in HOA 1 and restrict the use of HOA facilities for such events? If you would support that, why? And if you would not support it, why not?
Well, it's once again, we've got a sticky wicket. We have a little element in our Constitution that says we are entitled to some freedom to speech. Now, I don't know how limiting they want to make that freedom, but it seems as though that if one side or the other is concerned about one particular way of demonstrating, they're going to find fault with the other. And once again, it becomes a legal question, because you could find yourself in the middle of a legal problem if, in fact, the people that wanted to do a demonstration peacefully came out and challenged it. So I think it may be something that should be discussed kind of behind closed doors, if that's acceptable. But there needs to be some consideration about how this issue is dealt with. I'm sure there are people that don't like it, and there are people that love it.
I don't know, as a private organization, which HOA1 is, what our capabilities are to limit this. I guess if I had my druthers, I would have any demonstrations or whatever to be done in a limited area with clear-cut rules that would get enforced. But this is an area that I do not know what our capabilities are and what we can do.
I'm going to agree with Don on this one. I think that we have the clear ability to regulate the time, the manner, the place. We can establish fair rules for all people demonstrating, and I would take that approach.
All right, okay. Some residents feel that the HOA has excess fees, but others feel that those fees are fair. What are your thoughts about the fees? In particular, what do you think about reducing or increasing the community service fee in the future?
A lot of time is put into thinking about our fees. We have to balance off, we need to maintain our facilities, we want to expand and improve on them. And yet we have a lot of homeowners who are retired on fixed income, so we try and maintain a balance between the two. This year we have a $77 increase for 2022, which is 3.1%, which is probably half the inflation rate. To me, that was a pretty reasonable balance. But the entire 10-year plan is based upon assumptions for the future, and the board and the finance committee spent a lot of time trying to agree on what we think are reasonable assumptions going forward. We don't have a great crystal ball, but I think we work well together to come up with our best estimate. So I think we do is a fair fees at this point.
Well, I suppose I need to interject something, but I have not spent enough time on doing the projections, financial projections for the association, and I'm not going to be critical of it, any of the fee structures until I have had a chance to learn a little more about how they're developed and how they've been transpired.
Okay, thank you. Now, here's a personal history question, I guess. How have you demonstrated the ability to work well with others in the past?
Well, I try to be, I feel I'm a team player. I had an evolution. I think when I first came to Saddlebrook, I had ideas, and I realized that, hey, you got to be a team player. And it really was a personal growth area for me, and I feel I'm a team player, and I feel that the board voted that I am a team player by inviting me to come on to step into the position.
Well, my life's history, as far as my career is concerned, there had to be a lot of cooperation and motivation on my employees. I was asked to serve on a South Dakota Department of Transportation Commission. I served on the Community Development Corporation. I was also on the American Trucking Association. I was the vice president of the Truckload Carriers Conference. And I was president twice of the congregation, the Lutheran congregation back in Madison that was 1,600 members. So I think that having been called to those positions on several occasions demonstrates that they saw some value in my presence.
I've been involved with a lot of not-for-profit organizations over the years, and sometimes I'm in the position of the rabble-rouser who needs to change the status quo. In this case, I think that what the current board has been doing, I substantially agree with. I would not be a rabble-rouser, but I'm good at asking good questions and asking the questions nobody else thinks about. But I feel I can work well with others, and I have. I'll be looking forward to working with this board. And the management here, which is equally important, because Vivian and her staff have a very good relationship with each other and with this board, and we have a very good employee retention, which is very critical these days. So my job is not going to be to upset the apple cart, but to see if I can do some incremental improvement.
Thank you. And this is the last question. We see a number of posts from management and others about the lack of civility and the residents disobeying rules designed for our safety and security. How would you suggest we improve our behavior in these areas? And I think that's Bob, right? Yeah.
Well, I don't know where that question came from, because I circulate rather broadly in the community, and I don't see that kind of behavior that exists between our residents and the staff at the restaurant or any other element of the amenities that are currently available to us. I don't know what we need to do to improve upon it, because I don't think it needs to be improved. And if somebody has witness issues, I guess I'm fortunate that I haven't.
I've heard of some instances where homeowners have been not very nice to our food and beverage staff. I do not know about those personally, and I've not seen them when I've been at the restaurants. I asked at the budget meeting of the patrol, are there any particular problems that they have with the residents? And I got the answer, no. And then finally, it was modified to, well, some people have problems with speeding. And that's all I heard. And the discussion went no further. So I know I've heard about food and beverage issues, but I don't know how many there are.
We have procedures in place to handle incivility. There are a few types of incivility. There's incivility of residents to employees. And those are handled by management, and they're swiftly handled, and I believe they should be, because we must protect our employees. That's number one. Have been incidences of incivility between residents. I guess if it comes to the attention, if it rises to the level of coming to the attention of staff or other residents, those are handled through our very capable Rules Committee. Fines may be assessed. And then there's also the incident that on occasion employees are incivil to residents. And those are also handled and should be reported to management, and management will handle that in an appropriate manner.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, candidates, for your frank answers to those questions. And that really is it. What I would like to just mention is, if you are voting electronically, look for an email inviting you to vote on October the 22nd. And if you're submitting a paper ballot, it will be mailed to you on that day. So you'll receive it sometime after October the 22nd. Be sure to submit your vote before November the 22nd. So it's easy. October 22nd, you get it. November 22nd, you have to have it in. And all being well, election results will be announced on November the 23rd and will be audited on the 25th. By ninja warriors, I believe. And so finally, thank you, candidates, for both running and for your time today. Thank you to all the audience for your time. Thank you very much.